Barbeclat, bamula se el alchils, el gotrurior. Ngerul ko singil o ngayon buil, ang milos makambala school ablur belaw. Si liso ba rogul school public school. Makadano mo na siyang mula school belaw. El alchils el aleruklo. Ikatang artial albang ara uriol albang arangin sel lomaltkela His Excellency Surang Alwifs Junior. El tilt ki Dr. Del Jenkins ka Thomas ni Arubak. Gaya meltut kung mo Minister Education. Seguida albang lel alchils. Mapabiram nor at nakal Presidente Senate Paulis. Mukatmok Laurior into the Senate Resolution 11-36. Seguida resolution na tialuriol ng ari el alchils. Albang lel seguida resolution. Kira umatkel ng garubal tong okramdat. Niya mo trulas kura blur belaw. Makatyang me kumul merenga sulira adra committee ma senator sa ngartial tira sedal alim makletial urered. Madik recognize tira ngartiang vice chairman na committee senator Sungino, senator Cuarte ang Obanggid, senator Inabong Artiang, ma senator Mark Rudima. Tira ngartabita Florida senator Aldabel, senator Sangabaw, ma senator ngir abang tiriga kita senator sa ngartial kita motmak rel alchil sa motmak rawredet aktirig ngartiang Dr. Jenkins mal merenga sulem girela kangirgaw al motigubitial lobrado lurior albang lel belaw ka kongel mokut mukli mo tiguisel ngaraal se dial gegrel tokoy ng klorreal la makmadil waseng ngobrado tokoy aktirig ngartial mal gora recognize akil accomplishment tergaw. Sinsira ang ramlungura 1974. Ikamla sensei, imlarap trula abekil trentingil aurora school mora headmaster, kamla ora labachet, kamla mkod ora school, kamla mutra ragul trentingil ay ragul trentingil school belsa artial babir, dodengil wasya skum kod mora school ekut mukla isilurur and it's a remarkable accomplishment. Segi kudongil ngarababir. It's right in front of us. Ayun mo lisay. O banggil seguida sa low terkal merbelaw, el kira nord, itriga kita adang artial o banggil, same direct game dengan asulam negara lagi tiang artial. So we want to recognize your effort. It's something that need to be mentioned. Aktiga artial yang mal mereng asulira ada tiram, ang artial lo banggil karuba, artrui adang okra serul madad, o bantrira rubara ngarelong. Akabenor long artiang adalbay a minister mutu long artiang marbekla adang artiang ayim renga sulul dire kang artiang tulura auredet e kang artiang ut muklaudul atokora sko sel dong mukla tokora school ndi malalama askum madal martiang e madal mar school ya kasi del limit rang idil tokora school we cannot afford to do that segida so kalmre dilo o tergakli alway segide kodomura auredet me Dr. Jenkins kuling terkau mau bos kuma opening statement terkau, and when you're done, then we can start with the senators having a chance to ask you some questions. Kabong sulang.
First of all, malungin lita seals ragamiu atra Senate, toko peso sa Senate tapos malungi larang kung naitiang o pesra kamiu, especially tial kotol sirs ra school mal to ko pesalti abli mam kisa 3 o'clock at 2 tau start to bokul mora school alam na north kangakra ngalagi ka mora high school ngam nga sa pasal may hindi mam lungi larang mulme malobay check it ngi mura yun a school ako to global ko. Yung ramal, kora, talgip, I'm humbled to be considered for such a position. Mal klo at tukoy, maling at tukoy, hindi mal valuable at tukoy. Ako ta, diswakal mo, kora, masaw na talgip rangak, and how I got here. Aple, atran na bar, okay. Nara umela California kegrel bulu sensei rangak am lam hero rangak mal min influence pa inspire rangak Nga dimla ka koram dasul nga swakat mo anything daga mo engineer, daga mo ngrang, daga ngrang mo nga mo sensei. Mal swaka school. I spent too many years in school, I think. As I checked my resume, malo mesrengi, by only maybe 3 or 4 years, daga nga school. Malo school, ngokra school, sensei, administrator, or parent. Very important to me. I've been malmungkat in May, Kabelaw. Nakikiregal mo enter University of California over a PhD program, selektilo berahaya college. Diam naknan, tim nakasalum ready rangi, aku lagi rengar advisor rangak masaya. Kabay on ngul, tal fellowship rakau di medela. Kamu mo join na Peace Corps, sel muktul May, sebil mora school. Okay, aknal fire lo advice. Sel masih sel may selector nga kalmera pelaw. Nga mal maasanuk mideng niya pelaw. Ak mara high school lo manggala talang nga kra pelaw. Nga kra mela kayo. Julie tele. Hindi ako masyo tiya malung mamot ablura nga siya mal de kada malungil dak nera ngaram nenguy. Tigal atum le sa assign na ngakin merang ngaram nenguy. Tigal adrang ngaram nenguy amal to ko betsu ngilanga. Mal ko klora dir osisakra nga katoy masyugang. Ma tigal sensei da school ma principal rungul ma the sensei amboy abril emiwo Cecilia, Rosania, Johanna, te mamle help rangak. Ulaw nga amla oba degree, oba certificate, hindi di katal tayo mag-osisa ka classroom. Ma first experience ra. Say at tayo mal maasa ang ukra nga kra avelaw. Kung koto malom sa rendir. Koto kudungan ng ara class. Beyoto osisa. I got very spoiled. Hindi siya mo mereka sel time, uerak mirail, hindi rekan mang tengatra, lobenggal enggal ngirak lang malso. Ngam lay kora mo adapt rangak help rangak. O si sakra rangak at tugoy ra tugoy ra sales, tugoy ra belaw masyugang ra belaw. God was a great man, and I owe him much. Ngam man na change the life rangak. Man si sakra. Timle sa momreka Peace Corps maran mora states o si sakra 1 year a California special education. Mal 1 year at masin daka mal daka atra sebel o si sakra special ed. On toko betel at kiret nga dia. Sak mutun mera belaw o si sakra belaw mo dakne school. Ra English may start ra library. Sel momreka 1 year ngal atra St. John's School ra Guam. Mamle contact rangak, offer me my dream job. Mostly sakra science ra St. John's School. So maral. 26 years later, and you've seen the resume, we convert St. John's must start in Malkegate School. Sil mo talgip, emral mo high school, we added high school, we had Bessel building, Bessel gymnasium, Bessel lower school building. Sel uerak mirail ngal adra nabar del May ma assessra sel school ma say St. John's School top 10% schools in the United States. Te malto betzel ungila aisra school aul ngakra school at togobets ngakra school asuan man nungil. Engania bebila tikala to ba ngatiang. Ngal baredra school na malo o ay srangat mo say kidem mo check up future ako. Mo say bay ngil ka mo start mora graduate school imla degree ako in sebel mora administration. So man mo ngilo ta masters ra reading my masters ra administration. And yan mo say bere hindi ka mo stop at say bay mo tatarawan sebel mai boy mora doctorate. And at man mong ngilo doctorate. Taras time nga school saibal may ogera nga kan may mo headmaster say. Hindi sel time mo de best headmaster mo St. John's at mo si Diak. Dakat sa bekat po ba elal time maul sa best other may at may hadkal gip. Mong 5 years later timnan mutloger masidium na mo time. Ang nora saibal international school direct kay school Diaka high school. Mo sa kamad adra high school. Hindi siya. Na-startra adra 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, or best buildings in Muraka. Dira mamsubrat mga curriculum, madang niya ang International Baccalaureate Program, mga advanced placement programs at both schools. I got mo sabel, ngayon mo prepared in Mura College. I got schools and mga kiril sa Tatra College. So, but I just by a lot of time, smakadi mo say, tara question at young, mo say, what is your vision for MOE? Mo say, nga envision a MOE, a world-class school, system of schools, because they have the assets necessary to do so. Ang akra school, malamasarinti. A sensei, very dedicated, extremely dedicated, extremely hardworking, but they lack skills. But we can work on that. The dedication and to the students is very important. Ako tam swakad mo asug nga position swakad mo conduct a needs assessment. Ngarang aklisi ela MOE ngarang degalospe mo ngi. Right now ngani obvious 2 areas of need. A professional development na sensei a maklovel ko. Dirgak mitra requirements ra mo top-notch school. I want to congratulate the previous administrations for what they've done. They've started with the professional development plans. That's really good. But we need to do more. Dakat sabel di masay so certified o sisakto. Kira mo mesra kamo sisakto tela school, mo sisakto tela subject. And kira mo ngani ato wetzel training I done. Ma besel technology and besel methodology. Wangrang o sisakto. I can not change. Asum kamaral mo school belaw el time, you see lecture discussion, maybe 75%. Sensei, the all was sisakarangal. That doesn't work anymore. Namo time change most para better model. Kita malaki ngani maklo chance begit. They could kegade enrollment, ungila fiber optic and unila contact. Maldim namo sebel ospera technology emrula schools maran mongil, especially in sebel individualized instruction frangalka. Say kita ma klo promise la technology. Haul dagat seb LD ngania class ra tuningalka e osi sakal same thing to all 20. I got ngalka tirangalka. They all have individual needs. They have individual problems. They have individual abilities. Ngaramong time, dagat sebel. Jadi mo si sakra middle, they hope for the best. Elang sebel mo individualize everything for them. Sebel spera technology also. Thank goodness for our resources now. Because of COVID, we have discovered you can have conferencing. There's Zoom schools. There are many platforms which can be used so that you don't necessarily have to have one teacher in every classroom, one teacher in every grade level. You can use other sources to do things. These are all things which I hope to be able to accomplish. The professional development plan is good, as I said, but we need to continue to work with it. I also want to commend the previous Dr. Swalablai and Senator Tabalwal for the accreditation process which they initiated at the schools. That nga mal adra omranga accreditation. ngam na serve maybe 10 WASC accreditation teams visiting schools in Guam, also with the European Council of Independent Schools, evaluating and accrediting schools in New Guinea. Essence of accreditation is self-study. Each school masub ringi and will say wangrang our strengths and ngarang our needs, and sanga report and nganya action plan. Right now, I think all schools in Palau have been accredited for 1 year or more. That's malungin. That's maningat to boy. Dakal beyot. Maningat. Makloa ma orior ra sensei ma nongra school to do that. But now the time to use that action plan to improve the school. Say kita kirel accreditation. Accreditation nganya tu kirel. Ungil sa mura transcript ako nganya accredited by Western Association Schools and Colleges, which is the largest accrediting agency in the United States. That means when you go to, if you transfer, they know the level of the school and they will accept your grades, so you don't need to worry. But the most important, Kirel, is to improve the schools. You have the action plan where you must act upon it and make progress on an annual basis and report to that. So that when, as you look back, you'll find that the accreditation has helped you, forced you, Emran Mungila School. The other thing is, since Aknaravela help IOM, the International Organization for Migration, primarily with the Ministry of Education as our partner. I malmare adam madangli dagat seb el marurang arang Rabela without partners. Mal kilelo partnership ra ministries, partnership ra NGO, partnership with private businesses. All of these can help bring their strengths, their assets to Mrula School Mungi. Everything we need in school should always just have one question asked. Okay, for example, you want to start a new curriculum. Okay, let's see. How will it help students learn? That's really the answer, the question that must be answered. If it's positive, if it's not, then don't go that road. So, by using these partnerships, technology, Sebel Branmo schools Rabelao, world class. It can happen. I know it can happen because I've seen it happen. I know it happens. So, I'm rambling a little bit, excuse me. Indeed, I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Segamam saurai gel ngira Miguel Lamotar se Dr. Jenkins alo seguide de ola lamora senators agora Calvo Florida.
Sula Chairman, malungilita silse Dr. Jenkins, malungila rodul masakaw. Remember, some years back, the executive branch, so we had some occasion in sa edad ko mo at makalawra pipirato ko and that's how I got to know you. Ako din so I'll recognize in addition al maragil mention na chairman, I will effort travel direct al Luluyolo Mantrira Cell Civic Action Team. Put up request al direct may help al build igel walgara no playground al school al liwek belaw nga igel bebira schools al mlos el makatmok lay igel kora exercise facilities el mlos biar ngal el altame tomal enjoy mga man may asule mga igel effort. Mr. Jenkins ak madangel klaseng kautel kora din kam nombre kal kora maskida brief background ako self professional career ka ma background ka tora school mong malda ka question ra lasing ka qualified mortal position malupendya adi so kal Korea all the swim ringak mla saying awan ra ko taklol challenges ra a ministry. Perhaps this is the same challenge for all the ministries within the government. Silwal ngal sang sila udaw malubang sang sila resources do level taw tay gidel kung ara plan sir gidel so adal improve ra talo tetela school. Comme lo mention at professional development, and that is indeed a very good approach into looking at improving our school system. Ngira dal improve development tirigel adal tiro all taurior, especially sensei. Kita madik na sa belaw dirigel gikarel belu limited human resource capacity ngi makada utilize tirigel na top school. First of all, tirgal kuk tirgal kalto da school tirgal part tra system. So dal continue lo siga egigil te al mo sab edel al develop capacity til mo sab fulfill egil expectations ra management ma leadership al kuk ngwa level education al talgibal al marbab. So those being the challenges ngarayel Algor osengem el gire lakna se obong with these challenges ra funding lack of resources. Ngara ora al dasul mom dasul most of el ngosugal overcome may gigit challenges, especially to crowd do. Akmadingel all these years kadabal all tuira akran tra US federal government. We also get grants ra Taiwan al dire kalol nga sa to education Michael baby ra partner countries. In addition to those ngania ko ra additional source korangal the swim molat kal mo pursue if you are confirm mo Minister Education.
Long as senator the malungil ger. Professional development, as sensei, is an investment. You're making an investment in that person, and it maklol ko. Hindi man maringal era. But parum dasu, if I look sa ngaramong nganya schools where you per student cost is $2,000 at tarak, and nganya schools where per student cost is $6,000 a year. Aul a staffing. Kegare school, one student in a class, a teacher. Man maringa darat. Along with technology, we can make changes in the way we approach that issue. We can use people differently than we could use them before. You can have there are different ways of approaching the issue of per student cost. By grouping, I went to school at 4th, 5th, and 6th grade classroom. It's a tall class, and it was not a small class, but sensei manmatu. So, but now you don't have to do it that way. For example, I know the outer island schools, Kayangala, Pelelu, Angaur, the Southwest, Maningal tier, Maningal Stafford tier. Kayangala, I think 8 students, 10 teachers. It's not cost effective, but you must provide excellent education. Hindi sa el umpayo para technology. A few years ago, hindi impossible. But the technology we have now means you can put things to where you can have classes with a teacher observing maybe 3 or 4 different grade levels and individualized instruction going on via computer. All of these things can be done right now, and they should be done as soon as possible. Notice, I guess, Taiwan just donated 700 laptops to MOE. You must have a complete plan to use things to effectively take care of that. More time, nga malom rang sebel murat edutourism in Mirabelao. Haul ngani ang Korea, Japan, Taiwan, school, maklo business. Not a recruiting conference in Korea. 40,000 students go through it in one weekend, looking for schools to attend, or looking for English programs, or SAT programs. We can do that here. And it would be malungin se belospearingi for parents can come to do some diving, relax in the hotel. The kids can be in a classroom learning English or learning Palawan culture and then diving. Agim lasat tatyang rasaibal, imam nungilorio. Diesel problem to overcome would be to coordinate the school schedule of holiday so that the classrooms selbon madeela sebelo spera accommodate dragang tigang ngagod me. Direka sensei can make extra money by osisak. So those are two ways I think we can minimize the cost. Indeed, education has to become a priority. I feel badly. I know everybody really believes in education, but it's not a priority here. It's maybe number 4, maybe number 5, I don't know. It should be number 1, 2, or 3. And it's not, I'm sorry if that ruins my chances, but it's something which we need to address, that the problems we have can be solved by forming partnerships. The other thing is we are sort of murur to ask professionals to come and help us, to ask members of the Chamber of Commerce to come and osisakara course in accounting or ganyaikang sebelo spearti. Direct, the grants are still available and they are always going to be there. The U.S. aid, I think, will continue to come to Palau even more in the future. But again, making it more cost efficient and seeking alternative sources of resource using the resources we have here, I think we can do much better than we are right now.
Pamsulang Dr. Jenkins ra mal lungil response ra Marcel question na kung da se mal iwsela or the root of all the challenges that we're facing to our education. Sometimes kada mo accommodate ra neither other blue sel bebilatameng modical cost effective ay gigidel al tokol dorul accommodate ra neither other blue ding. I guess for us in the Congress, I give all I'll take side ay gigidel neither other blue. And so mamal ruletri other blue mo hapir ay gel gimorul mortileng agi mga ear cells and curtir. We just have to be honest. And the bottom line, amral gila de lo mesra, cell cost effectiveness ra, or tela school, I'll make sure others of il continue access a school wherever they are. Ese gila solution, el blam offering il, kung nasa kada utilize a technology, and we can still reach out and more tigigidil al ngara igil wal remote areas. Direct access ay osisul quality education. So I think it really matter of trying to be innovative, creative in the way we do things with the very small resources available to us. Dr. Jenkins sa next algariga talgibal ko ra daktung bring question and then I would hope kung lasem mo sa ML kuradi miska kadi sel domestra social media and we can see that there's a mixed feelings sa other belaw lasing sometimes ang kadome sa kamen tra other lasing digyar other belaw qualify mora ikal ministry mga president appoint tra other abad. And this is, I don't think it's they're meant to say that they discriminate adal moral important through our government. Kung nasang angani sir nira other bela nasing may perhaps ang angani other bela qualify moral position presidenta instead ra malut kar adra nga bardal mo ak madingek na siya kamla investor klol part tra life for karablur belaw you're probably your heart is probably more Palawan than American, I suppose. Like kamla investor life for karablur belaw na ako dik mo adang long term na miskaw diamal morubak at niya kandi you should you truly deserve one of the chief title in along. But anyways, I get kita maybe ato kaya kung dasing to adal hindi ka lodeng lisa gid guk background na. So if you were to tell if you have the opportunity guk o ay sa tigay gid adal wal ko have a different maluwang guk ngod o singir at yal appointment del mga minister, what would you say to them?
Mungil kier. Ak malam dasul selta boy. Mal every night. Dagat se begel help bringing other part. Don't blame me for that. But it's a valid concern. I appreciate it, and I think that I read their articles. I read it, and I read what some people are saying, and I understand their point. Malungil point that di. Ngakadim na ka involved na selection. I have no idea what went on in the selection process. Aktima say, aulak mera velaw, imokay the show ravelaw. Ngakamla moklola, sibeka di ngokl, mora tarabalu, live on the beach. Oh wait a minute, that's here. Go skiing. Hindi akmera velaw, aul abelaw amaptikrang. Akma say, asugum sebeka help, segida mal, try that young. Mal blakarung me. Akimoge, give me 4 years and then decide. Pretend I'm Palawan for 4 years and just or listen to my poor Palawan. But just give me a chance, and I think at the end of the 4 years you will say it was okay. But maybe by that time, I hope a Palawan would be ready to assume the position.
Okay, one last question. Semel gukti sel mergi I know nga atial resume ka seguido mga senchan kamlo morsel kamlo hedra school direct semel kora di sel mergi igel ako kora bebira tokol rule or sel school that contribute to the success Ascension School. Sa emel ko di siya mga committee, mga di mo part.
I would like to take credit for all of it. Hindi mal, nga ka mal tingat. Mal lucky a sensera sa school, mal blakarendir o si sakl. Mga kra school, mal blakarendir to masub. We used to have a joke among the teachers. We said, we've created a big hairy monster, and the kids just keep making it better and better and better. I think if I did anything, nakamaswa ka collegial model, where Athan di Sebel South Atagoy openly and come to collegial decisions as to which way we go. Sel school and the guys who went there can tell you, Sensei mal down madaktarangak. They would come in and ongroylangak. In fact, let me tell you a little story. A sensei, a pre-kindergarten teacher, they made a obis rangak, may appointment rangak. Nakadimle opera doctorate mangaka, masyaw nga mal mo detchala. And God sensei the may masi hala ko gerako. Nga kasokal ngani a best program and swakal maru. I say nga program. Sele alphabet. Nga pre-K. Say, ngarang so much change sa alphabet. Say, Go si soccer alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now I know my ABCs. Don't you come with English kang itakal? You say, daka kiralo si soccer ni why say. The alphabet are not linear. The alphabet, ngania, they go together to form words. Nakadim lang, not early childhood, but you divide them into vowels, and you divide them into consonants, and you teach a vowel and a consonant, and then they can make a word, and they can read. She said, well, why do we teach alphabetical order? So people know the alphabet. That's the only reason. There's no reason to teach it. So whenever I have an issue where I'm torn, I just say, remember the ABC. Open your mind to work, and you can open up and make much better selections and much better choices by listening to other people.
So, Florida, and you said something that I think it's a word that school up until now has not been a priority for Palau. We say it's priority, but we do not spend accordingly. And I think it's orang artiangir gutriang bolwai sengkiri del mo ngolwa school wai simdili, so that has to be said and must be done. Kadol mo mra questioning. Dr. Quarte, Senator Quarte.
Sulay chere malul litasil silor kay Dr. Jenkins kung nasa yung kura unfair del kartang hindi mo rere kung makumamrura rere makadiyaw subes referral morsel babiere el blem sender ngi ngari sel Republic of Palau 2009 el mo 2012 Special Assistant to President of Republic of Palau on Education. Memloria telegel ng oklo bangyam sel Education Special Task Force. Makumda sa sayida first time umamil ko kadrahel na we are sworn to be teachers. Then there are other laws that talk down, so we are sworn to be teachers. Before the first time, memlo to a question na all girela tol dorura al sela blur belaw. Ra education model ergid. May kumda so memlo blaktak ra sayid al time melwasing. Gira del change including igal tol molokor al time. Di solo kaya mal di one el question. Ya kumda sa nakapera bebil mo di hotel do swim. Sel matora presidenta sa ako tar other belaw. Ang dasang adiakal color, madiakal heritage, madiakal. Maybe it's a philosophical discussion. Nguk. Like madial wasem batokar adal. Dakar silar other belaw, but probably more Palawan than baby other belaw in Maras, but couldn't care less. Ang dasang arbitrary issue meron. Din sa kaloger kalwa sa kam translator sa yidel kora theme ako tar other belaw el girela appointment trao el mo Minister of Education, especially in regards to all year round school system, consolidation of schools, model of teaching from didactic development consult 90 minutes each, el mora private partnership lang like a private school. Ang rangar alela Palau Ministry of Health in terms of working with the private schools. Both sa el luwaya do makasrogoy dul osisyon ko. Kam translator sa yid was ako tar other belaw al mortilay sulang.
That's a really interesting question, Doctor. And I manguyo ay gang klalo tigan mal batogat atin interpret me has to be Palauan, must be Palauan to be able to help Palau. I have to say that's not accurate. Ako tel other belaw means everything should be for the Palauans, not necessarily every job. Assume nga niya everything exactly the same, two people, other than a bard, other a Belao, choose the Palauan. That's fine, that's your right. But if it's not, choose the best person who can address the issue and help the people of Palau more than anyone else could. I'm assuming that's what happened. I don't think it's because I'm an American I was selected. In fact, I'm pretty sure I was not the reason I was selected, because it's a loss of political capital for the president. Looking back at that task force, sige na ba malungila task force, and the ideas were very good. Hindi namo over 10 years ago. Maklo change la a time. Sige the time dimlaka internet, dimlaka social media ra Belao. So we were looking to solve a problem, and we solved it with those ideas that were valid. Now, those ideas are still good, but we have many more options available. We don't have to consolidate schools. We can put them together visually, virtually, I guess is the new word. So I think that's I think a key element of the opportunities we have. Makloa chance makloa chance to really do something special here. A school system, 2,000 students or so. Partnership with the private schools. I would look for beyond that. I've already been contacted by the Superintendent of Education in Guam, John Fernandez, who's a former St. John's student, who has reached out and said he would love to start working with the ministry in terms of consolidation, of sharing of resources. So it's possible. Not only can we use people here, but we can use people throughout the Pacific. Saipan is another area. The United States, the world can do it. The only thing that makes it difficult are the time zones. Our technology is able to do it now. So that would be in what was suggested 10 years ago was valid 10 years ago. But now we have a lot more options available. And I know the village schools are really important to many people, and I think they should be kept if at all possible. And such as what the floor leader was talking about in terms of serving the outer islands, I think we can do so much better than we currently have been able to in the past. Okay.
What about the all-year school? Why do students have to take 3 months off? Where did that come from, and why is it adopted?
That was for farming, so the children could go work on the farms in Nebraska and in the Midwest. Selngaramong time, Belao had year-round school, year-round calendar. First one I ever saw work. It was malungin. Sel school letra Guam Saipan, agim na change in mo modified year-round calendar to minimize the length of summer. You lose short-term memory in that period of time. To provide more holiday time during the school year. Finish a quarter, have a quarter break. Maybe just 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. Time off from school, everybody. And then the semester break, focus around if people want to observe, if you observe Christmas or things like that, you have more time. But year-round school, I'm a firm believer it's the best system educationally. So if you're asking yourself what's the calendar supposed to look like, and you ask yourself the question, how does it help student learning? Year-round calendar is the best. And Palau still has almost a year-round calendar, but not really. It's changing every year. The only reason I would say we might want to look at a modified year-round calendar is so we can align our calendars with schools in Korea, Taiwan, to be able to focus on educational tourism, so we can bring resources in using our facilities and our teachers who aren't doing anything at that period of time. But that's about it. But year-round schools, I'm a firm believer educationally it's the best system.
So lang, Dr. Jenkins and kiak sol wasak mo secure ka ti merenga sulat.
Wala, Senator Inabo.
Do we speak English or we speak Palawan? Malungil Litasils. First, I want to thank you for accepting the appointment for the ministry. I think it's the hardest ministry, and it needs a lot of, like you say, it's an investment in our future. But because the children have the smallest voice, usually we can bypass them and hear other very loud political voices during the policy deliberation process. So I'm actually happy that someone who's from outside, not very Palawan, but I hope your heart is more Palawan than your mind, can help us refocus our efforts and our resources on our children. We find that sometimes our children struggle, but just to go through school. And I, for one, believe that we should have the school breakfast program and lunch program, just so that we can make sure our children gets good nutrition. And you know, in Palawan, customs, we are spending so much money on the customs that sometimes our children gets to be the second choice when it comes to the end of before the end of the 2-week period. So I've always been so concerned with that. And so that's my number one issue with school. How would you deal with that? Another issue that I find is getting qualified teachers. You mentioned in one of your answers that professional development and teacher qualifications is probably the most challenging issue for Ministry of Education, and that's probably true. So how do you attract more teachers? When we go to a scholarship office, teachers is not one of our priority field, and maybe you should help us change that priority for us. If you, I don't know how to change the mindset, but I think that should be one of the focus of minister. And with that comes the issue of foreign teachers in our education system. And when there's a graduation at Pala High School and we see foreign students being the top students in our own education system, not our children, but other people's children. I mean, I'm not. But the students complain that because these teachers speak foreign language and they're instructing these foreign students in their own language, and then sometimes the instructions in English is not very clear to them, it's really kind of hard for them to compete at the same learning level. So I think those are challenges we should address, and I've read your resume and I understand the qualifications. I'm just wondering, how are you gonna work with the system that we have now to address these issues? Thank you, Dr. Jenkins.
I was reading some of the comments that people wrote, and that was an issue that I honestly hadn't given that much thought to. And the malvalida point ringi. Number one, anybody coming to teach in Palau should speak either English or Palauan. You should not be having people come in who aren't fluent in one of those two languages. Unless they're going to be teaching a foreign language, unless they're going to be teaching Japanese or Mandarin. If they're going to be teaching regular subjects, they have to pass a language fluency test. Seguida 1. So it's not so much the immigration of people coming to teach is not necessarily a bad thing, but the numbers are becoming, I think, very frightening. I think the percentage of teachers who are not Palauan is becoming very high, and I think because of the scholarships and because of the low prestige of the positions. That needs to change, and it has to be done over a period of time. One of the projects, I came here as a substitute teacher. Peace Corps volunteer, we were substitutes. I took a class so that teacher could then attend college and get their degree, and then the next year change. That was my whole reason for being here, and it worked out well for them. But I don't know if you can continue doing that. Recruiting teachers to Palau would not be hard. Palau would be a really attractive place to bring teachers in. I recruited teachers mostly from almost entirely from the United States for both Guam and Saipan. And if you show someone in Iowa in the middle of the winter a picture of Palau, they'll just say, "Where do I sign?" They'll come out. They would come here for two reasons. One, it's a beautiful place to see and experience, and secondly, it would give them an entrance into the international school circuit, which is what many people want to do, go teach in at Bangkok or Jakarta, those schools. So you can use them as those substitute teachers. So when you have someone come in, then you should be sending a Palauan to finish to get their degree, finish their degree, their specialization. That's one route we could take. But I do not understand how you can allow people to come here who don't speak either of the languages which are used in Palau. It makes no sense to me, and it's not necessary. If you have to bring in foreign teachers, you can certainly bring in teachers who are able to teach either in English or Palauan, with English being probably the main language to be used. You shouldn't be bringing in people who don't speak English or whose English is not standard. I understand your concerns. I know what they are. I have had personal experience with those, and it's bothersome.
Senator Sangvok.
Selagi Dr. Jenkins ang malungi larungol ngartiang orang sergaul kusangaringel tara adalmle koina sel terme orang ania history me belawal sel question a conventional wisdom. One always el logera wa yegi del gere question ko singaram kadamru tal di waisera bekal sis. Yak modoli tiangaling maybe motat cycle baby ragamen tablaldo baby ra senators. Ang aramong vested teachers in Gagida Harper's Kang, tigem lesi class. And they were considered like top-notch sa Blue Belao. Elanging lada kasual mo sensiling mal ngayong dudel. And I know for one, having come from an NGO, ito mas skuli, they can serve other compensator, tirum at amazing already at school, not because they don't want to teach. They have to support their family. Maybe a college preparatory school. Magklo tuition and I'm sure you pay your teachers well. In fact, I know St. John's sa direkal nga niya PhD sensei. Ngara osang nga masaygi mal suko mang recommendation lo kumda sul kasing yes, you can always keep brother nga niya narong lolisak kundi at some point tinggal support our family ringi. And how do you see that fit in mo na cook structure? Leng ay ga well known makatadik mo. In order for you to mo sugarak lolo, itong igara classroom mo igal mera administration, linggira mal mo chief malu ka director, e mo ba do them. Is there a way for child civil service system, I'll change ringi because hindi ka lawyer at ko school. And I'll let you, maybe kung das saying, if not, o kung lawyer, kung das sa sige, kung das sa kadamaran mo ringiling, their best student tra Korea, amo sensei. Our best students don't become teachers. And that's a sad fact. Kung das sa kadangar, al siltiya rokoy, letira ka rokoy ng atiyang al-adim le, with exception, ali nga kakwasi nga rin, tirigil exception, ang kaya chairman ng atiyang. Tirigil the best student, tadakal ng atiyang al-time, amle top valedictorian na pala high school, a president tablo bela al-time, dimlakabol sensei. Akum das sa sige da, makamgora, akuk mesa kasi nga sa edel ngura, akuk plum learner ngira private school, at sa edel tungira system, at talgib ambring la dore, hindi kumdas yung start, ra conversation, al gira dal mo more sige.
Conventional wisdom. Simple to fix. You take professional development and you reward it. I started here, bottom. Mora class, mora school, mora degree, you move this way. You set a scale. But the problem is, in the civil service system, how do you do that? My suggestion would be teachers should be put on teaching contracts. All Ministry of Education should be put on teaching contracts. And there are ways to implement this. I'm going to be looking at reaching out to colleagues to see how it was done. Because a civil servant can take a vacation anytime they want. So, in the middle of the school year, they can take 2 weeks off. And that's what I say. Teachers should be given 10-month contracts. They teach 10 months. They can be paid over 12 if they want. But they work 10 months at the school year. And the holidays are the school holidays. And that the salary scale is designed for the teachers. Akmal agreed, Chairman, that everybody talks it's important, but they don't put their money in. It's not that much money. We'll be able to save money in other ways by using technology that we've never used before to be able to make up for some of our forced personnel issues. In other words, you have to put too many teachers in certain schools because of the number of students or because of where they are. You can handle that another way. We have other alternatives. So the major issue there is can we change teachers from civil servants contracts to teaching contracts. And I know that's a really difficult thing to do, but I think we should at least try to explore and make it worth their while. You know, give them incentives to do so. There are ways. It's been done. I just have to find out how it could be done here. But it would certainly improve the schools. And the other thing is, if I'm sure you've all heard, Finland used to have not very good schools. So what did they do? They paid their teachers equivalent to doctors and lawyers, and their schools went up into the top 5. In Germany, the lawyers went to the Prime Minister of Germany, the President Merkel, and asked her if they could be paid the same as teachers are, because the teachers are being paid more than them. And Merkel said, "How can I pay you the same as those who teach you?" So there are different attitudes. I'm not saying you need to do that, but in the schools, teachers must be able to support their families. Otherwise, you're never going to have good teachers. And it can be done. It just takes time, and it takes an investment. But I think you'd be surprised how little it would really be in the full scheme of things over a period of years.
Sula, generally, di gulmon ma. Akmadange kwase la kamle apply tanga umara St. John's. Na ino angalga ka nara Xavier High School. And they do a lot in helping our students apply in more colleges ram Rigel. One of the things that I'll isang Talgim ko na maring raw doswe kalso ko mataywa nga send driver to student til mas kuram rigel. Kita send driver to student trigi dal mataywa nga labi ko sing free. At taywa nga ulmang ulis lungil balo our best brightest students mar pangayaw dudin amora kuram rigel and it's still this way el balula. Rigel top pas kuringira colleges. There's no question about that. Ding ko ra masan ko kalso ko matokol ngal garbelaw. Amora skura Siawal, mamura skura Taiwan, mal makasaya to drablo Ramrigel. Yada po Ramrigel, ni kada talgibul yakto kasing dakal school, and dakal legal top tier school. More and more, we're not going to those schools, even though public universities, they're still a top universities. Mga ka malolingit, kasi ako mga tangat over tiyang, bolsa bedo lo mesra as part of tel compact negotiation. Kasi kada magara all turan nga lagay universities Ramrigel. El sabi el direct provide scholarships. I don't know umdas so kung part tra develop Ramrigel el direct umdas so singire del mo independent del belu. Isa igida ko maral ko sing direct ngaya taram le senator milsado kasi okpom kada may gal universities Ramrigel rokul may ikwasem gibrawan el scholarship al mara blur belaw akong marak masing laas of ilgo ngering just one and I had an opportunity mga dura nga Stanford University when they came to Palau. Dr. Jenkins, and this is what I told them as a graduate of University of Hawaii. Actually, there's University of Hawaii has one up on Stanford University. They almost fell off their chairs, but I told them that the University of Hawaii has graduated more head of state than Stanford. Hindi kakakal ka Stanford mo President Tablo Amrigel. That in itself, akong das ang prestige and more skura, ngidil skura Amrigel. And so I would like to offer that el ngidil part ra koram kora discuss kasi kalel sabi edel mutiyang alo tungira. Dagil al dadura compact negotiation el kasi sabi edel mo kora o mesa segid is a part ra continuing el development ra blur belao in the future. Ikamal masaw le akmal wilar ngol ngarteng erong saw magil ko cool the same el girela school ra blur belao going forward. Sula.
Sa telela, Senator Mangsaw.
Wilita silse toktang Dr. Jenkins kaman sular tel teal me madruka abangle nga kada kamal gari kay ka umdaswa trigal baby ra kalik srigi damla address sa igel kuram le meringal ge ma ngadi moswa kal motats ra le tigingem ra alel kuramil sa tial education tourism nguramal interesting udaleleng akmin nga adura tarangal ra ngaligel belaw nga skura Taiwan nga ilang tiya ko kura maawanar sa lolokor nga senators nga baw nga bay nga school nga nga TLL erna nga medal ko de kluk sa akla tokor belaw tokora Marigel lo tiralo sa tirgel orior arwa igale tech corporations mal masuka malungil udo tin sir omdul way siya koramal lo merong ko sa tial abay sep edal bay multi o maksa mariara ng aligedal nga kel belal suda ni temrurungil morar adalangot albulu e bay gal merbela emruro o si sirto ko e bay ngara balurire o si akra ngal rangot albulu to koram rigel leng aludal moragel umulo ko ako tuluul wase adalol si sa akla agirel el madanget to korbelaw egirel madanget to koram rigel mal appreciate sa yun. O si time toktange koramil sa dagel innovative solutions. Igel kukurame biratletara o masub. Makadilul wase el albulul adeng man namugil at correct technology. Compare the more shell timer o part task force. Wal kukuram leng song sa igel kukura adongul muluspelo o tau taigal toro si sa akla. Mungkadi maswakal mo ngaw do semla sense emel kukura di Michelle manakamitil wase ngaray kay gidal ko ra practical mal umingigel ko ra tol mom daswe el altam ya o mangal takatebong ang sab emel los pel dongulol si akar sensei mos ira sensei los si kaltira nga liget de adil stober say direct kalbol sa LTL kaman longil makataklil wa se komaral wa sa parents ra ablay Agilin mo part at tayo the relationship, malumong partnership, ra lugurule la education system mergid marangaligid. Makmalolingit dem kwadi mo expounder sa igid idea ra partnership ma sel statement om dilil was mal neswa statement tawas I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to listen and work with everyone. Sa igid akum das close to telel was kamal ngaring sel open mind ra mal willing lo ro laban trira ar adal sudanit tangara educational system el alta. Sulay doktor.
You'll have to excuse me if I just go backwards. The Malcloa difference Ravela el al time a few years ago is everybody speaks English so well. The level of English in Palau is amazing. It's really impressive. I would like to think Peace Corps did it, but I think it was television. But I think, yeah, television. Or kung fu movies. The key you were asking is that one of the edutourism would be exactly that. And I'm going to steal an idea from someone who's sitting directly behind me, so I hope he doesn't get mad. Was we could do it online. You can set up consortiums to where you organize and then can have people do with Zoom or with a educational platform to where either students or teachers could be teaching English, American English, which is what they want. And I think that's a very valid possibility and one which we should definitely look into. The other would be, if you're really just looking at budget, you could go get 500 students to come and go to school in Palau without any difficulty whatsoever and pay $20,000 a year. You could do that. I don't think it would be a wise decision, but it could be done. But there are other alternatives in bringing them in on short term. We did it in Saipan. That's how we kept our tuition level so low. We admitted foreign students who were phenomenal students, but Saipan's culture is very different than Palau. It worked there. I don't think it would work here. But it should certainly be as far as coming in for, let's say, even the summer. I met with people in Korea there were people who were parents who were spending $7,000 to $10,000 to send their child to a 3-week English SAT prep course because they're crazy to get into those top-level courses. And they'll pay that much money they were paying $20,000 to come to Saipan, of which the school got $5,000, and the people who ran the business got $15,000. So those are options. I don't think that's one you want to consider, but I think it would definitely be, I think, worth exploring with partnering MOE with PVA and the Bureau of Tourism to start investigating bringing in groups of students for short term, not to come and sit in a class for one day or something like that, but to come in for a 2 or 3 week period of time using classrooms that are not being used with teachers who are not being, working at that time, and have English or SAT prep. That's another big one. That's a big issue. So getting back to why the students not going to college is they're not being given college guidance. Very simple. We had, in Saipan, we had a full year course, we called it senior seminar, and that's how to get into college. Started in the junior year. The juniors would have a class called the junior seminar, where they would begin working on their applications, doing an examination of where they wanted to go to school, how to fill out the common application forms or different application forms. All that, they need time to do that. Writing their essays, they all need time to do that. It's not, back in the day you just turn in an application form. It's not like that anymore. It's a much more complex activity. And I think one reason why they're not going to the States, it costs $100,000 to go to university. Now, we can do something about that. We can join WIC, which is the Western Institute, and you'll get resident tuition I think it'll cost about $100,000 a year. So it may not be worth that much money, but it's worth investigating. They did that in the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas joined that, as well as, and what it could be, you instead of paying the non-resident tuition of $20,000 a year, you pay resident tuition of $5,000 a year. But not all schools are members, but that's an option you might want to put in the back of your mind somewhere for colleges. But there are a lot of different possibilities, yeah, of getting that. I agree, there's not enough money in scholarship. It's not close to me. I was very fortunate. I was given a California State scholarship, which gave me free tuition at any school I wanted to attend. And I was given a California State fellowship, which was graduate school. And that was based on one test and one test alone. It was the SAT and then the GRE. Scored well on that, you got a scholarship. But the other thing is that the top level schools now, most of them, you don't have to pay the tuition if you cannot afford it. If you can get in, they use their endowments because they were making so much money on their endowments that they were forced to give scholarships on need basis, 100%. Otherwise, they would lose their tax exempt status. So that's another issue. But getting into those schools is getting harder and harder. I think Stanford has an acceptance rate of 1 out of 300. Pretty tough. But it can be done. There are Palauans studying in Stanford right now. Or no, she graduated, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, just before I lead to another one, I have a point to make about Palay School to Palau Community College. Just before I left, we did a survey of our students coming out of Palay School going to PCC. 90% of our kids go to PCC. The ones that we checked, we had 1,500 that went to PCC in the last 10 years. 67% did not make it to PCC. That's a reality that we have. So if we need to address that right at home, even before we go out somewhere else. So I think that's a challenge that we have, that those kids are out there that they have not completed and their financial aid is locked out and they don't have anywhere to go. So that's an existing issue that we have, that we want to make sure that they get out of Palay and go to PCC, Palay High School or any high school, that they get in and they complete. It is a challenge at home that we have to address. So I just want to bring that out as we move on. If you want to share something like that.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think it's outrageous that we have a college and a high school sharing a campus, and we don't have much interaction between the two schools. We have students who are graduating from high school, and let's say they're not interested in going into becoming a doctor, an attorney, or a professional. They're interested in working with their hands. They want to be a mechanic, they're an air conditioning technician. Why do they have to go to 2 years of college to become an air conditioning technician? I think the MOE needs to work with PCC to streamline some of those type of professions to enable students to go through without having to go through the full liberal arts or a full 2-year degree program, but be able to go into specifically the field they want. We already have the career guidance all the way through elementary school. So by the time the students are getting into, well, the 11th grade now, they now choose a major field. I think we can expand that even more to individualize the students' choices, because everybody comes in now, they go to Palau High School, they all take the same course in the 9th grade, they all take the same course in the 10th grade. They all take the same courses in the 11th grade, except for I think maybe 1 or 2 maybe, and the same thing for the 12th grade. We can make adjustments in that so that they can have more flexibility in their choices of classes. We might want to consider tracking. We definitely need some after-school programs. I think it's very important for after-school programs, both at the high school level, elementary and high school level, but also at the college. The students who need extra help, students who are being taught by a person who doesn't speak English or Palauan, and they're being taught a difficult mathematics course, they need help. And we should make that available to them if we can. Because you're right, it's a shame that we get 66% of the students cannot finish a 2-year degree. There's something wrong, something's broken, and it needs to be fixed. But what that is, I'm not sure yet. But I know Dr. Tele is open to many different programs, but it would take coordination. We share a facility. Palau High School teaches algebra. Well, PCC teaches algebra. Why can't we share our resources instead of always being, well, we're here and you're there? It might be, it's certainly worth something to explore.
Normal mo Senator Ngirabang.
Malmasaura te al chair ngilo da osong Dr. Jenkins. Wala Oy, makakubidak na ra flight tul mirara kasusumo. Awula ko lumas kul mertan tin 6 feet at rong lamang. Selbok to dak mo mask. Akatengye karong sa mo da do I think it was 2, maybe 3 years ago. Kamleram dala Senate mas kumamsel opening session special remarks. Sayam na ko tengye kal meet rakaw actually in person. Aknarming sa isim. Sira bromre kal mo da do I felt inspired. A feeling al gurbang asing tial system ra education argida ngariya sa edol ko ngodi il change ringi sel mal blakatak lang ara al sel tial questionnaire especially number 8 ngariya atokol mdilir al sel tiang no sayger rogul tokol dongatmok al sukum makadongatmok al girira ngalgit in Girilda ka question, the answer should be yes. Tirgagi da focus rigid. Mungkora malmleswak sa gid statement tergaling nga ka umra ringit to koy nga ka dirikal umra lo sa umra ringit to koy. A school ade kal statra campus. Statra apply. Maka ko ba kal morsel question ra senator mga saw. Nga singral ngara sa edruli as a community blue el inspire learning process ra apply masel ba ara head start kindergarten first grade ang talgibel elevate ra klang artikal ngalget masel oras a campus ra school en sen motivo biota royal morti na koral dos pamigirel say.
Thank you for bringing up parents. Parent. Before I had children, I could sit in my office and lecture parents on, here's what you need to do. You need to do this. I was an idiot. One thing I would say immediately we can do would be the accreditation process has a very specific role for parents, and they should be involved in that, every single school. I was on the PTA in Norlang for, 5 years. I was the vice chair for 3. I was never asked anything about school, except when they wanted to have food. So we were very, and most people, that's fine. But you cannot exclude the parents and then blame the parents. You have to help them come in. A couple things we need to do is we need to improve our communication. We do not communicate very effectively from schools to parents. It's very difficult to find out what's really going on. Even for getting the first day of school, it's not that simple sometimes. And we can do that, again, by just simple things. I would like to meet with parents on a regular basis. The PTA organizations have their chairs, and they all have, they have a head organization. I think that would be a valuable thing to do. I would have to improve my Palauan, that's for sure. But that would be something that we should work on. The principals need to be given more authority to speak to parents, to help parents become a part of the school. Because I don't know if it's valid or not, but oftentimes I was told, well, that has to be a decision made in the ministry. Maybe it was, I don't know. But that's an issue that the principals should be in daily contact with parents. Our schools are so small, 30, 40 students in the village schools. They should be meeting with parents all the time. The other, of course, is the demographics. Many of the children are not being raised by their parents, they're being raised by grandparents or aunts and uncles, so that's another issue. But I think as far as when the parents are available, we should include them as an integral part of the accreditation process. Their input should be taken in. It can be whatever language they are comfortable in and be translated into it. But that's actually a requirement of the accreditation. You have to have a parent committee reply. So that's a nice way of getting people into it. And we also need to have ways of meeting with them on a regular basis, which is
Kamal Masaura, Hinsirga, Dr. Jenkins, Akmal. Appreciate their several challenge to get the parents more involved. Adati blood masarak maramarang the Tarngalget, we have to make time to get involved. Akmal appreciate their commitment tramal the swim girl say. Aktilura where agumula Garigal Morga, Mr. Jenkins, Dr. Jenkins, Aknar Akwam Lemeragasus. And I just so happened to be driving down Marine Drive, and Bilsawana building. And Naria sand and outside the Dale Jenkins Gymnasium. So I'm doing a swaggle shit, tell up and get tell secretary Lalwasing. Maria Gymnasium, Laraquam, Laria Kilngarubakari. The Woodingel, Agumdasung Lao Sissurubak. Lemnara St. Johnson, unless Maria Model Dale Jenkins Lucisacra St. Johnson. So having said that, there must be a reason why we don't just put people's names on buildings for no reason. And the regal so I'll point out to Sanganar baby our students our audience al osong the audience natin nakangot albasyo loborngi al time and the umra no set ng artial mga limarkaw letomrar kaw tim na so point da kumasang you know who they are. The indemnisation may the statement chair and the kangot algorithm malmsaw.
Saula Senator Ibang Legal Gamentri with the Ulan Vice Chairman. So
Mal lumilitasil se Mr. Jenkins. Ako tiagure nga sulem el la aldaam el tugor belaw. Kamal traves tragal mo dadu atugor belaw. Ako nga dadu atugor belaw ka understand that tugol gulgoy. Ako mda sa sige ako tel klol sub irar ngulaaf. Rabelaw al sugum sa emel mga dadu atiging la rabelaw. Irameng sa ako nga dadu ultukoy understand the yegid ultukoy. It's about communication, my learning. Le cook hindi ka digiri nga kara school. Hindi mo marang masetyal bekel silsa nga aswabalo. Egire lo marang masetyal gida gire kal malmol mo dadu uringi nga lagek. Masega bekel silsa lo bagis. Engarnya do ngurgal beskaru bakal Dios. Legal senses ra badingim. I want to go to close part of listening skills. Because you can hear me talk, or you can listen to what I say. Mang akti orang sakal mga adu matanya kumasing tiang ako kadal daw luriol oborgi. Kama milingil tra adrabalu. Matangalia political pressure outside. Selong adu adrabalu. Din dia kal sabi kal ngusayid. Almongar era education rangal karbelo. Ako marangal kumasay. Ako to close to telel au ale langal selomul. Lekto di mo atol language. Aktyo ay sa story nga kalangari nga lagi kalmine kekare. Te foran nga lagi kaya wana blek iliwi tiang ra ngel number 3 nga ka oywirabu mak-apply ngin morning. As a parent tak apply ngin morning. Aktilo arti na huliping ilun mokro ulang masendia ka mga dadu orngi atto korang apa nato. Kamu dadu orngi atto korang huliping. Engi ome sa TV mengmusu atto korang apa nato. Enga kamabi ka mga dadu orngi atto kor belaw. Teriga gid formal kam ngi gid alwan Black character experiment nga karingi. Ako talmalom sarong retiroy. She's a critical thinker. Leng maduul switch el motor belaw, motor huriping, motor ang abarat in an early age. Mga help pernil grow articulate system. Mga kaumarang alkmasing ay kal tokol mo lokoy ma tial over ng posisyon a osper ngel got al qualified al at. Ndiak tuluasay necessary other belaw malubang other ang abarat. Other belaw malubang other ang abarat. Nangaring ang minister sa mlayo ko ergaw other ang abarat. Minister of Justice sa dire kan mlaring. Mga umarang alkmasaya tegit sel umarang alkmasang time dingit itria tunga tukar education mo nga ruay. Just by making these critical decisions, I'll help parang algetri ko siging el most qualified al other more root at kel toy. Maybe nga rin baby at tukol ko plamues na ay krel belaw al mga almengo sweet tel system al ngar al sel lang. Di kal magkit there's room for improvements every day. Mga akmo to ulway sa gidaleng aktividad kam lao riolo bang game. Kumeso taro sa mirga nga sel PIIAA kadang natma kalorior. Sige nga kamlo ko termom tang alkaw. Nga kadang okertyang because ito ko a sports. Masel ko commitment nga kalmo ra ko lumra nga ngil toy. Akmlay inspired ra arbebi nga kalmo ra sentyan. Dong okra sel telblay. And they are nga ra position liregal sabil ditir masadartis. Dik na kaya kalbo ikaw lumes sa newspaper o mes ang program ra akwam sel talame Pacific Daily News nga rin ang clear tirkalo buku maru ulle kara alsil. Makya kalbo yung deep true am na sports ang torak lago landik masay. Kalbelaw makaranya mo rin ang kletra makara PDN or sel masarong nga karbelaw al nga ra PDN. Sige dam na inspire nga kalmasya tukora sports sige daw ko kumle dreamer nga kamakul I chose maya ul tigat ka sige del dreamer nga ittegi daw result ka nga laktang okor tiang because actual mega gid critical decisions of mga best el way the help prangal gid mo understand that tel belol nga al sera bekal sils beto ka opportunity kita adra belol nga ka umrang base kita blessed el belu hindi kita maral mo bagi kada di mo ulil tertiap masya education mengungil di ngarinya to ras ngarinya obuku kul dimne atrasers otob da triar ngalger school mengira dal mo innovative self innovative thinking may jegi dal tol mo ko ya among ko inspire nga masay yes we want the best personal morat siap ya kumrang masay you are qualified and debate cycle babir oblabas kamam ya kung marang masing asing kiro nga kamo base sa sige qualification or kau hindi akal base rak masing kau kadrang apart kadar belaw insel ko tel best el mongos tri rangal karbelaw sige da ko nga mung akti o ti sige del kora all the swear tel el dadu o ger tel tukal masing ngaraw the swim el girela a sports ma physical activities may gel other curricular activities el help prangal kara learning process sa school to education makarang almost pa el help el educate trangal or motivate trangal.
It's all a part of individualized educational opportunity that for example the BIIAA was formed because saw a need, so we got together and work with the principals and with the GNOC and with you and with Julie to get this league, which is not part of the school. It's a private or non-profit organization. It's an idea of partnership. It's now in its 6th year, and I think we probably had 1,000 ang sports in a safe, regulated sports program. Other after-school activities, we need to seek things. Every child has something they can do well. Maybe it's singing, maybe it's dancing, maybe it's being in a dramatic performance. I was looking around trying to say, where could we have dramatic performances here? And there's right over at the Civic Center, I think we could work. I was an athlete in high school, and then my English teacher came up to me and said, why don't you try out for this play we're putting on? It's a musical. And I said, I don't sing and I don't dance. He goes, there are a lot of girls in it. And I said, well, let me try it out. So, Akmlong, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. And the next year we did Finian's Rainbow. And the next year we did Guys and Dolls. And now it's a tradition in the town where every year you need to give students, we used to call it a piece of the pie. Everybody wants a piece of the pie. Some can get it through academics. Some can get it through sports. Some hopefully can get it through the fine arts. And some can get it maybe from helping others. There are all kinds of different options we need to explore. But we need to start looking to find out what are the needs of the students? What are their abilities? And to meet those needs, be it in school, which would be great, but then outside maybe with, such as with the BIIAA, with a nonprofit organization. It's all a possibility. All that's possible and it's doable. Okay? So.
Dia kam sular hen sirgaling tila hiram le sokarong siling tirkabek pedingir arangal. Egide de lo sigil kusen ngarasel sab elangal gal ensuring in the process and subia subelelra aka school or class. Seguida mo koram le sokal mesada ngileng ngire de lo sigil seguida le ruliangal kamong mosa mariar el masubo. With physical activity in sab lo spirit seguida le sports as an avenue will help pangal gal subi sel guk principal ra education literal deliver ngim ako ring asule mal gidel sige del el ense hensir gaw elakti oger kmasek ulugum ngara makamongol tat makamingil abi IIAA amal successful program for the last 6 years ding mal di maluy ra high school umondas win direct better integrate the Selmore elementary school programs umosabe el guk ngarnya osisil concept termur elementary school. BIAA, it's already designed to do middle schools. Indeed, we didn't want to interfere with the PE program that was being done by the ministry. And so we've held off doing that. But it's a possibility to where the ministry could do the elementary up to grade 6, and then maybe the BIIA could take over from middle school. But again, that's an opportunity. But again, we didn't want to interfere because there is a program going on in the elementary up to grade 8, and that was best at that time. We just wanted to focus. Correct me if I'm wrong. Well, we wanted to focus on the high school because there was nothing really there. And that's why we focused on that. But there was nothing to prevent if the ministry would agree for the BIIAA to move into the middle school program as well, or to assist in running it, because I know it's a lot to do. You have one person who's trying to run a PE program and sports programs for 16 schools. That's a lot. But anyway, that would be that option Sebel consider. Ya masular tila igid leng akundas tila igid sel. The only way we're going to work with this partnership lo manggilagay different agencies wa PNOC because kautel mesa ngaral sila BIIAA lulurior because you were working with all the sports federations. So that concept tadi kal akmilsa segi del millo da segi dra PE specialist ma minister ma PNOC millo da communication or segi so amlo makita ng mamringi as deliver book sports activity deliverers agi mo makita ng mam lengal kam lor nyak 2 years selja kalau school and it affected them le kadom level dra system mal mongil e ogore mongot aldas so mang math marangal were really disappointed because they were also used more tagi the system ngora di social shira lait segid mong obomol tangat mo mongil temol mol mel disi segid leng akumdas so betokol ngal kara gay the school they look forward to these games. Some other experience motivated to bring up their grades up. They will help Tora education with the different activities, after school activities. So lang.
Direkal malungila tool ra sensei, ma principal, ma parents. Asugman yang ako sa school, as a principal, if you momesra game matir, temadingay. And mosuri ako. And make your life a lot easier. As well as teachers, same thing. The students know who's watching them play, who cares about this activity, and they will protect those people and help them. Research very clear. Disciplinary problems go down, grades go up when kids are involved in good after-school activities. And of course, the BIIA was never designed for the Olympians. The Olympians are a whole different breed. This was designed for as many children as possible to play. And we haven't been able to expand as much as we wanted to, but we're getting there.
So kaldingot maldi mo close lo bang malungil example mlaras program na sports. Kada di gari ng siya di kamla may sang raigal opening Rabelau Games. Ayana Ringil. She was a dedicated athlete with the support adrablil. Kada may sang result sel driver ngi through sports programs through college mga malungil school mo. Akmalaw marang there's more rooms in there. Dire kasi pedro spera tora lokol. Nagayidal activities help parangal move forward. Sulang tuktang.
So lebih klaro yang amal nita kalau orang adik kabarigal few comment asumoni adal mutan ania soal oder si please mo aisa. Sel gotu soal diloni terkam nutur kora ogisil edu ase gamem oti sel tretele labo molgi sarendir ademo. How do you inspire the management at MOE and the principals to own the shared vision and to move forward that we wish them to do? Come share Segid Eldadam, please.
It takes time. By Nkiler Mal Madingay, we all have the same goal. And the goal is to help children learn. But that's not what their goal is. So maybe that will take time for them to choose to change their goal or to choose something else. But as I said, I think collegial approach is best. Everybody is an active participant and everybody has ownership of whatever you're trying to do. So that would be how I plan to do it. I'm not an inspiring person. I'm not a great, runner and but I think I can listen to and understand and take others' ideas and put them into effect. So I think that's how we do it. And again, the sensei and everybody in the ministry should not fear to say what they think, say what they believe, because I want facts. That's what I want. I want facts. If I ask one of the directors, do we have this? I want to know if we have it or not. If we don't have it, we'll get it. We'll find a way to get it, or we'll find out. I don't want spin, and I don't want everything. And one thing I've learned through IOM, if you ask people how their ministry is doing, everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's always fine. Everything's okay. Everything's fine. And it's not. And so we need to understand and assess when we need help and ask for it when we need it. And so, but moving forward, I think the innovation and the technology is going to be making a much easier transition for most people.
Kaman sorry I think kadang artiaman mo kutukilo saying everything is not fine at MOE. It's not. At the leadership level, I think there's some more that needs to be done. And akmalunit ram over some clear say, if it doesn't happen at the management, it doesn't happen anywhere. Akmalunit tayo surya say, tegda mildura clear si maktuli ng milgat mo kulgumnas and diakal gira ministry nga niya staff am lolngit ar adlo urula se megi molngit tegi hospital room low Australian Gaskula se halagi masagya ulan. That happened this year. Where's the priority? Ak ngartia otor ka clear sa priority ng ngal, ang sensei, ang cook, ang bus driver, ang principal, chief, directors, kamertiaryo. That's where we need to go. Nila minister ng artil albak, I hope we think that way and work that way. Dahil altuta ak nara school ako. Malungin at ako rogo, hindi, some things could have been done better. Because those kids out there are the priorities, not us sitting in this room. Sige tamal albang leader, elal mo na si alakal sikro lel, mawas o sangir ma aududo den mora ng lagid. Hindi kasi bedel ngoreak al morsel. Kita soadan ringi omrog sangi. Hindi on paper it looks good. Tai chop for 4 years, and it's not happening. Akti solo tro kais in terms of leadership. Sige tamal solo tro kli. Atara actually nga tiang ling direkal mlebre setya ngariar parent ng alam dromat. Mlokora kansin masingkang alabong eglel teligibel mo lakalsal sumsi Palawan studies. A textbook. Itrikakatan mo ka textbook for the last many years that we have Palawan studies in place, we have the curriculum, hindi ka textbook. President amla promise la sayang mo deliver the funds. Akmalun ito sa over a school mo sa gil textbook Palawan studies at least from the grade level 1. It start to build that textbook because teachers go in, they have to teach Palawan studies. They do not have the materials for those Palawan studies at the moment. I get this local some things that we need to address as we move into the adbotang altanga say. Sel tara diregal gudang ling atia kamle hensering sel teacher certification. Ese kadam ring asulela Senator Quartel Gilt Maklira last RPPL 10 story 2. And I know you mentioned that the possibility is to get the work done. Self-praxis test that you mentioned. When about do you want to put that inside the certification process? Is it towards the end after the training or also? Please explain.
I think you want to do pre and post. I would like it at the beginning to see where they are, and then at the post to see where they aren't, or where they finalized. Normally, for certification process, the praxis is taken at the very end, and then your score will determine whether or not you receive a teaching certificate. But in our case, we are going to probably be developing local norms. The score of Belau would have to be, so we need to find out where they are to begin with. The scores I saw were from 2016, and I think that's Manmeoda. So, the other thing I wanted to talk about just about, I first met you when you were the 8th grade principal at Karora Elementary School, and that school was great, I thought. I mean, I was only there for a short visit, and I thought it was great because you were a cheerleader, and every time I've ever met you, you really love children. And I think what I would like to do is work, I've never really noticed the interaction between the Senate and the Ministry of Education, but I think the members of this committee and myself should also be regularly meeting to find out what's going on and how you can help us or what initiatives we have that we would like to try to accomplish. So again, that's another matter of partnership. I don't, maybe it already exists, I don't know, but it's something I would certainly want to try to do.
Yeah, kaman sauli, and then apotang tanga you can count on the committee that will be together in all of this. It must be done. We cannot afford not to be partners and expect things to happen the right way. It has to happen. Sige actually. So sige sel practice actis wakal mindful was we have teachers that we hire that do not have the credentials that we wish them to have. So having to test them akmal kura kargik lo sel omngai kargik legal result lakal kura something to put them down, something to use them as a way to move forward. Sige dati imol tendency by time kata ut makli, and those are the ones that applied and are able to do the work. No one is coming down to apply for these jobs. Tirigay ang alagid il gongel mo na classroom igid lo ng sertil lo ng sek like il klisi il momudu. Sige da ko tang lim igid il mungul sel tira gongel mo kut makli e ol ng sertil mo ba. Sige da sa kalo terkakli. Sel imura tokoy mulsada ngira sentiana K to grade 12. What's your idea of how can you strengthen our kindergarten where they're more viable preparation for first graders? Because that's a challenge we have.
My experience has been 4 years old is when they should start an academic program. 4, pre-K, 5K, first grade. I mean, right now, your kids are 6 years old before they start school. They're 2 to 3 years behind. And those are 2, 3 of the prime learning times when language acquisition skills are at their peak. And I've seen it work. I mean, students who come in and it's an amazing process. If I could start all over again, I would become a preschool teacher. It's a fascinating process. But I think it's long overdue, and I know Head Start is in existence, but maybe there must be some way of maybe us working together to make that a transitionist phase to where I don't see any reason why we don't have K4, K5.
Okay. Please about sa level ng tangat seguida. If we don't do it, kinder is not going to solve our problems from grade 1 and up. So, speaking for say. Another topic, special education. Currently, we have lack of expertise at the special education for those kids with hearing impaired, blind, ADHD. Even at that point, there's different levels that we don't have expertise to support. And those are some areas of special help that maybe, if I know we have some background in special education, you can work with that program to see what can we do to access those services. Another challenge, we have autistic kids that because of the mainstreaming through LRE, they have to be in the classroom. Some of the kids cannot manage to be in the regular classroom without the support of a special ed teacher. And they have chose not to go to school. It's just too hard. And the parents are stranded at home. They don't have an option. We don't have a homeschool program that they can apply to. So the only option is to go to school, and their kids are not able to manage in the regular classroom. So that's a challenge for those particular kids. So special education needs some attention that with your background, I hope you can help them navigate the way to get those support, at least some support. I know funding is an issue there. That's something that we need to address, but
Identify them as a vulnerable population, of which obviously they are, and we can find, I think we could find some funding available based on that, not necessarily going through, we may want to go through PCAA, or we may just want to go through the UN or IOM. The protection of vulnerable is very important, particularly when you're talking about young children.
thank you. That's a good option, and please explore that on that line. Another one that we have is adult high school. We have a group of high school students that dropped out of high school, or even elementary. They're all over the place, and our program is down to 8,000 funds from U.S. federal funding. There's no funding at MOE, and the program is very weak. We can do the work, but it does not get attention it needs. And I hope you also want to get there to work on that program, because we have a lot of kids out there that's the only way for them to get high school diploma. I know one that was able to do that, went to PCC, and now he's teaching at Pala High School. Great kid, but was not able to complete high school, and now he's doing his work at PCC.
Maybe Eru Rakal Mlamimong, there were some teachers from Norlong Elementary School who set up a program like that in the village. And I think you had one also, to where you would bring people up to Ngotmao to work on those programs. I think taking it to them is the way to go in that, because they're not going to be able to come in here. And it gives them much greater impetus to try to get through that program.
Yes, getting it to them is essential, so please, uspagin sur seguide. Imurato ko pala school counselor. Emotional needs, social challenges, all those other things. At this moment, the MOE doesn't have any counselor. We rely Ministry of Health. But if you have someone at MOE, not many, but one or somebody that can go out there, because some of the challenges our kids go through sometimes beyond the teacher's capacity. And they need somebody with a professional background, something to consider because it's required. And our small villages, when there's something that's happening that's tragic, those kids need some counseling or some conversation to kind of help them understand what's going on. That's something that I think needs to be addressed at some point. So again, just to bring that out, that it's another challenge we have, and we're hoping that we can make progress there. And then finally, teacher's aid. At some of our schools, there are 20 or sometimes 23 first graders to one teacher. It's beyond that one teacher to be able to. So if there's a possibility of, given the number of kids in one classroom, maybe we can assign a teacher's aide to those classrooms with those many kids to help the teacher manage the learning and be more effective because they have that support. What do you think about that?
We'll get class size determined by number of rooms available or number of teachers?
From what I know, there's for some schools, there are 4 first graders, and they open registration and they try to restrict it to 20. Sometimes it goes beyond 20. At one time, there's 25, even 27 in one room.
Okay. Well, 25 is not a huge number, but if the ministry would like to establish a maximum number of class, and then you would just have to get another teacher. Teacher aides can be of assistance, but if you have a choice, you're going to be spending a little bit more, and if you can get a qualified teacher, and that'll give you much more flexibility than by having an aide who basically would serve as a babysitter or an assistant, which would be fine, but I think the ideal would be to keep your class sizes in the range of 15 or less, particularly in the early elementary. Early elementary should be less than 13, which I think most schools are doing fairly well. But I think it would be just looking at why are we having classes of 25 would be the first question I would ask. Is it better for them to have 2 classes of 13 or 12 or 13, or 1 class of 25?
I'll leave the discussion with you when confirmation comes in, and then you'll figure that out, and we'll support 2 teachers. What we need to do, we'll do. I think we need to figure those, because those are some boundaries that have not been established to date, and that's why we are having those issues. Nakakuran mo the last question comment before we come to a close. Senator Somo.
Electrotron siya last grime mal inspiring adong duro kay Dr. Jenkins dire kal mal sa manera tora school wana dire kal gora black subia kasing tirakal to del ma certificate terti even before they enter the classroom. And I can't remember kasi yang skura gora yang skura yegi del top 5 that you talked about Finland. And before they even go to the classroom, to spend that time lawangir trigel best teachers and ral sila classroom ngomes tomes ringing sila loli sakla. And I think it's important wala mo mentor retir ito bantri rin mo era before they even get to the classroom. And I'm fan of TED Talks. Mlaham sa Ken Robinson and you coming from school at St. John's, you have a lot of leeway in terms of innovation. Lingga malukol kasi traditional educational system sometimes kills innovation. How realistic our system, educational system in the government that you can implement tabebira udas wal gawa kora umdas. And is that possible? And Selmera Saibal, was that also a private school? Umarak masing, how realistic can we implement that? Maybe not to. Akwadi ngul mo risegi deka maybe sa mo na help.
I'm not completely sure how it works here. I'm pretty stubborn. And so if we want to get something done, I would assume this would be the committee to bring it to, and then we would go from there. Otherwise, it can be done within the ministry. Is that accurate? Okay.
Okay, tay takapakura krokong something sokal duli Dr. Jenkins say in the school system there's only one question that has to be done. You must stand and deliver. You must stand and deliver. There is no other options because the livelihood of those kids in front of you are determined by how well you deliver. Seguida sokal ngarti other silo se adam al sil seguida wal osangel tela se kada magarangan mo mudingel se gawa mo deliver. Seguida kariol le mo message seguida gem lam gatmok. Edel sel imorato ko raskurung isa say don't judge the book by its cover. Oh. Au ulun tiro da mitsuru trigal beber adol giulela bigos en dia ka lemeaf e mul treat mong kata. You treat them according to who they are and what their potential is. Seguida sokal ngarti ang adulo say seguida gi mobile lurior len tokora school ngirel bliol e malalama. Le school dia kal bliol le dia kal olal men dia ka sel madal school mo. Ayo seguida wal reveal tel committee education e ulo bangem e seguida gumda sa kamladong li opera del toko ning ngungil mamdong mang morakwa. Akpo bul ngari adingal. No sen dirga ka tal time. El tunga party a school mo turo clear o rakla. E nga udo dun mo si. At to ko angar o rakla. Hindi udo da amaludo sara makasos. We have not built a new school since we got the kapak money. Not once. I think it's due time to get a new system going in. And make sure to get a school become the priority that we talk about. Sige, so kalduli, momrege ngariat game pomodars is a closing statement a Florida mo musimlom tera committee. Sulang.
I come from a private school background where if you don't stand and deliver, your school closes. There's no guarantee, 1 year to another. So you learn accountability. Accountability is everything in private education. Maybe that's something we need to start instituting here a little bit as well, accountability with accurate measurement. That would be one way of starting it. The other would be, I'm not exactly sure as to where we go from here. The area would be, there's a vision, and I have things in mind which I think can be done fairly quickly. But whether or not how do I put this? The powers that be will fund it. We'll have to find another way, and it might slow it down a little bit. But there are, I would like to think that anything is possible here. I know it can happen. I've seen it happen. I've been involved with it happening twice. It just takes people who are dedicated to try and who are rewarded for their effort. It makes a difference. Well, I meeting. Find it very interesting. If you haven't noticed, I love to talk about education. It's what I am and it's what I do. And I wish you the best in your deliberation. And I guess now I will just go back up to the Great North and await your decision. Okay? But anyway, Ma'am Sulang. And I'm sorry I butchered your language so much. I'm going to get better.
Tiragal mal mga asule me puntira Florida belum tira kamel closing remarks.
So la chairman Dr. Jenkins, kalmutul ngutal te alle mal mereng asulem. Kaloreng argao kal atak tirigel lamini mora minister post la amal mlak time abla itil ala du. O tiak mla setial ministerial oboringi amal ngaran ri arbekal senators, especially tel committee education a senate. Michael responder kal moraigel question Michael guk tokol mlodarsel morgaw amal kimngal mora arang mam mo mga kutmakla report mal mo makadaldal report rigil mo ngil mora awlolela senate ay kal maral mel klabsay merong hopefully mo sa amal convince arang la senate mo o nga confirmation nga enough about talagang confirm kal mo minister education. Ilarang mamal remeng cycle betokol lungil responder kal gire like tokora school agi omrak na sing betokol tamal dosada nga sa politics masada tokora school na sing priority the action sergi dera tokora allocation of resources abal all mo ngani isel ngal sa ngasel mang maral swadal lauriol lobongela adal maral sabel maskida direksyon a school maskida blab el lauriol na sigagid may gagida bodorur year to year maskida ko lergid na setiagida adagat mok lay gagid setiagida ko lergid bodo reach ni sigida direkal mo ngusugi dera kumam nga albira kalula mo sa amal lultulay gaygid mga tmok roongot mga tletelela yosang tukunigel allocation el mora school el klorang mamal plasing momoy tersel lugil moktegel sa el meral mo deliver result adrablur bela mo o benefit ringi makalmutul nga tiyang emal mereng asulem ra te alle direkal mereng asulem ra commitment terkau makangyer kau mora president al girel tial cloud to tlel ngaral mo minister education yakartia o mesra a minister natural resources environment matoka labor al ngartiang ngila igida akum dasen kotol mokmeder kal minister not because a teacher or a student relationship because ngar aliw arol kami igal tablol ministry kami amal girel mo kakakla le ultimately ako lergi dara tokora education is to build our human resource sige del human resource sige ako to close to trail mang angar alela ministry ra education amol top der tigel mo instila igel knowledge, igel necessary knowledge, ma character, not only knowledge, ma direct character, adal molis akartir. Ito may igel knowledge, and then turn emergo nga contribute to logi at toraurior, kasi igidang guk mo alala minister matulol guk ko or rep ta tri igel adal na todra school, mamlama training, almo raigel kakarusel taluntingil auriol blue wela ultuile mga kadong malget kartel balwan. So it's all about nation building. It's all about developing our nation through human resource. Sige mal cloud to trail mal appreciate mal acknowledge sa sige priority. And with that gimal muton man mga sulem also edel osmeritial hearing guk kimo mokrang mamal morsel guk deliberation Senate giri voting amo confirmer ko ekluto man mga sulem tigal okyak sang argi del lulbang kemal merel la afternoon umal masaul